Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Hello and welcome to Living on the Edge. 70% of our bodies are made of water and it covers 70% of the Earth's surface. It's one resource we can't do without, but it's also one resource that's grossly mismanaged globally. Water scarcities bedevil us, floods destroy lives and property, and drought kills much more than agriculture. Nandini Rajware shows us that we only have ourselves to blame.
They say there's thunder when the gods are angry, and when nature is angry, there's drought. Sahel, Africa, 1970. Drought. More or less continues till 1985. Indonesia, 1982. Drought of a severity expected only once in several hundred years. India, 1982. Acute drought, destroying life and cattle, leaving thousands helpless. These climatic aberrations are not normal. They are indicative of the disturbed state of the world's environment. Over the past decade, global warming has induced all sorts of unpredictable changes. An analysis of world weather shows unusual change. You have melting glaciers, decreasing snow cover, and rising sea levels. And you have rainfall patterns changing. Perhaps the most worrying facet of global climatic change is its impact on the availability of a resource critical to our survival: water.
Scarcity might seem an odd word for something that covers almost 3/4 of the surface of our globe, and yet very little of the available water is fit for human consumption. To put it simply, if all the world's water were to fit into a bathtub, the portion of it that could be used sustainably in any given year would barely fill a teaspoon. This is because we can only consume fresh water. In actuality, only 1% of the world's water can be used.
95% of the world's water is saline seawater. 4% is frozen. Liquid fresh water is 1%.
What's alarming is that while the amount of fresh water remains relatively constant, populations dependent on water for their survival multiply at a frightening rate. A World Bank study estimates that if the present-day human population doubles, as it will, the demand for water will rise a staggering 650%, a demand which cannot possibly be sustained by the Earth's limited resources. You could brush aside these mind-boggling statistics or ridicule doomsday predictions, but the number of water-deprived people is growing exponentially every day.
Increasing aridity has forced nearly 1 million environmental refugees to flee Burkina Faso. Maharashtra has 40% of India's dams, and yet 60 million of the 80 million people do not have access to potable water.
And India is close on their heels. As things stand, India's usable water is just sufficient to meet the demands of the country till 2025. Already scarcity has become the norm. In this coastal town of Gujarat, the endless waiting, limited supply of the precious liquid and frayed nerves often leads to bitter disputes.
કૂતરા ખાય ને અમાર તલાવમાં પડે ઈ પાણી માર પીવાનું એનો અમને રોગ થઈ જાય ભયંકર ખાય ને કૂતરા નાય ઈમાં અને સીમ બહુ વાગી છે ક્યાં ભરવા જાવ ઈ કૂતરા પડે નાય ને મારી પાસે નીકળે ઈ પાણી માર પીવાનું એના રોગ થાય કેટલા છોકરા હમણાં મોટા ને મોટા એવડા નવડા ગુજરી ગયા એમાં રોગમાં.
Dependent on the available groundwater, polluted or otherwise, the rural poor are desperate. Drying up of water sources, stated a recent World Bank study, threatens to become India's greatest environmental crisis. Though you can blame nature for the calamitous visitations of floods and drought, we have to accept that much of our water problem is of our own making. We don't harness rainwater, we destroy whole ecosystems, we pollute our rivers and groundwater with effluents, and we fail to use with respect and restraint a resource that we can't do without.
जो खेती का वेल है उसमें केमिकल का पानी निकलता है, इससे खेती को नुकसान है। दूसरा जो पौधा लगाए थे ये नदी के बाजू में वो भी मर गए सब, और ढोल को भी ज़्यादा नुकसान हुआ है। कितने आदमी पग से अंदर पाँव रखने से जल गए थे पहले।
If you're exposed to chemicals, you will get cancer in 10 years and 15 years. But of course, you're exposed to diarrhea, to germs, then you may get an explosive disease like cholera and things of that kind. And that is where the media also plays a very negative role. It never focuses on things like cancer, it only focuses on the choleras and things of that kind. Because it is there for you to see. Cancers take very long time to emerge. All this will happen to the Indian people. It's already beginning to happen in a big way.
Only 1 lakh out of an estimated 57 lakh villages get water in pipes. Dirty water is the principal transmission agent for 80% of diseases that afflict the third world. Waterborne diseases kill nearly 25 million people in developing countries every year.
In India, around 1.5 to 2 million children below the age of 5 die because of diarrhea-related deaths every year. 50% of these water in rural area I'm talking of are cholera endemic because of not safe water being given to them.
And whilst rural India struggles for every drop, the urban elite is pampered with virtually limitless amounts. But for how long?
Drinking, washing and cooking needs could be adequately met everywhere in the country by less than 100 litres per person per day, roughly the amount used for an average shower.
Besides controlling overuse and wastage, we could save by recycling wastewater, as the developed countries are already doing. As much as 80% of industrial wastewater is retrievable. Water is currently supplied at highly subsidized rates, and therefore the lack of awareness of water conservation. Better management of our water resources might also require that our citizens pay a price for this precious resource and a higher price for unrestrained consumption.
Nothing in our country is charged at economic prices. We give you electricity free, irrigation water free, municipal water free, bus transportation free. Everything is subsidized in the name of the poor and in the name of the rich. But ultimately, these subsidies means it is not an economic proposition, and therefore when the crisis comes, it is the poorest who are hit.
The crisis is not always of too little water, but sometimes because of too much of it. Today, areas of high rainfall in India face droughts as landscapes are denuded and rainfall runs off before sinking into the ground. Cherrapunji in Meghalaya once received the most rainfall in the world. Today, it no longer carries that distinction because of widespread deforestation. In fact, it's afflicted by both floods and drought in the same year, a condition which has plagued more than half of India's districts for the past 12 years. For countries dependent on agriculture, this scenario is more ominous than we may realize at present. Over 15 million hectares of India's farmland is severely affected by waterlogging, rendering it useless. Globally, as much land goes out of production every year because of waterlogging as is brought under irrigation by new projects. And when there is drought, do we need to spell out how agriculture is affected? It is a vicious cycle. Limited water, environmental destruction, and the reduced number of rainy days can leave governments grappling with compounded problems of drought, floods, food shortage, and human misery. It seems strange that India, which has the third largest scientific manpower in the world, has made little progress in the field of water harvesting. But what's heartening is that in some pockets the ingenuity of local people has been more than a match for water scarcity.
Gopalpura village, Rajasthan, 1982. While the rest of the country was recovering from a severe drought, the locals here revived the primitive but efficient technique of check dams. In this dry area, agricultural yields went up by 300%. Raleganj Siddhi, Maharashtra. A perpetually drought-hit area resulting in malnutrition, poverty and complete apathy. Today the landscape proclaims free-flowing taps, hand pumps and bowells.
It is only when the Raligan Siddhi experience is repeated on a wider scale across India that real hope for a solution will begin to emerge. The fact is that we have very little time. The longer we wait, the more difficult it is to begin water conservation. And as they say, every drop makes an ocean.
If your children are watching too much television, they may be getting out of the habit of reading, which is vital for their studies, or of playing, which they need for the exercise, and they may be becoming exposed to very adult concepts. Aren't these good enough reasons to encourage them to a more physically and intellectually active way of life? Remember, every action of yours counts.
Still to come, synthetic milk. Whatever will they come up with next, and why people's participation is crucial for environmental protection. But first,
Episode 55, October 1995, Air Conditioning. Living on the Edge reveals that air-conditioned rooms and buildings have far higher level of carbon dioxide than they should. May 14, 1996. A study reveals that poor air quality can lead to headaches, irritation of the eyes, throat and nose, lethargy, dizziness and nausea. Even infectious diseases like influenza, chickenpox and measles can be transmitted within the room or building. The study further reveals that asthma, liver and kidney damage, chest and abdominal cancer can also occur. Indoor air pollution can be controlled by allowing fresh air in at periodic intervals. Verdict: the fact that indoor air is 10 times more polluted than outdoor air can hardly bring any cheer. In most of our towns, fresh outdoor air is not as fresh as it used to be. The question is, which is the lesser of the two evils?
for better or worse, we all use synthetics. Polyester and terrene are a part of nearly every wardrobe. We consume synthetic vitamin pills, and try as we may, we can't stop using plastic. Recently, a wise guy has come up with another synthetic consumable, and this one, says Zareen Taj Jaleel, is not good for you.
I like it hot with 1 liter. I like it in the simplest form without sugar, just plain milk.
Just to drink tasty. Any kind of a cold milk, any form of cold milk I like. Put it in coffee and put it in tea.
In the form of curds, cream, everything.
अच्छा नहीं लगता मेरे को.
I mean, one cannot trust giving the milk to the child.
Adulteration of milk is perhaps as old as milk itself. Depending on the need and the situation, water, caustic soda, salt, sugar, wheat, flour, and even blotting paper have been used to increase milk volume. Besides increasing volume, adulterants in the milk also push up density, shelf life, and fat content. Most of us are aware of the varying degrees of milk adulteration and take it in our stride. But when newspaper reports suddenly begin talking about synthetic milk, helping make good, milk shortages, and the dangers to our health that could result, consumers find themselves in a quandary. What exactly is synthetic milk? How different is it from any other adulterated milk? How do you recognize it? And how dangerous is it to your health? What is synthetic milk? It's a fluid that looks like milk and was first manufactured by an unscrupulous farmer in Kurukshetra in Haryana in 1994. Media reports claim he raised the fat content of milk by adding urea, cooking oil and detergents in tiny quantities. Naturally, he was able to produce liter after liter at a fraction of the cost of genuine milk. Unfortunately, he was not able to keep this a secret, and very soon, scores of other dairymen in the state were following his lead.
The synthetic milk that you are concerned about, that we are all concerned about, it will cost about 2 or 3 rupees per litre, as against the normal price of milk, which is about 10.
Actually, if you taste the milk, there is certainly a difference in the taste. The milk is being slightly salty, or the different taste is there.
How different is it from any other adulterated milk? When water is added to milk to increase its volume or small quantities of vegetable oil are mixed to increase its fat content, milk can be said to be adulterated. But it is far less harmful than synthetic milk. Synthetic milk is, after all, a cocktail of chemicals like urea, which is a fertilizer, and detergents, which, unlike vegetable oil, are not edible and are in fact highly toxic if ingested. How dangerous is it?
I can foresee from the metabolic standpoint, some of his digestive system and other things will be disturbed because this is an unwanted, unknown molecule into the whole digestive system. Detergent may not be poison, but it's neither a food.
Medical experts confirm that prolonged intake of even small quantities of urea, DDT, etc. could cause cancer, ulcers, and skin diseases. How do you recognize it? This is tricky, but if you find that the milk you get tastes a little different, a little salty perhaps, then there is a chance that it has been adulterated with synthetic milk. You could get it tested from a food testing lab, report it to local food inspectors, buy milk from the organized license sector. The central government's delicensing policy, adopted 3 years ago, led to the mushrooming of small and large milk processing units. To maximize profits, dairy owners and middlemen used every means at their disposal to push up the volume of milk being produced. The shortfall between the demand and supply of milk also encourages adulteration of some sort or the other. Take Delhi, for instance. The daily demand for milk is nearly 30 lakh litres. Government-owned and supported cooperatives are able to meet only half this demand. The rest, approximately 14 to 15 lakh litres, is met by private contractors, and it therefore becomes difficult to identify the extent of adulteration. Reaction to the scare. The Delhi government decided to issue licenses to milk dealers in the capital as a way of controlling them, while milk sampling and testing was carried out in most of the milk-producing states of northern India.
By the reports which we are getting from the samples, out of 88 samples, 84 they are impure, but in no sample we have found urea. That means synthetic milk is not there.
Some analysts believe the presence of urea in milk is a vital precondition to use the synthetic label.
As far as the synthetic milk is concerned, I think today it's a non-issue. I mean, I don't consider it to be an issue to be focused.
Even if synthetic milk is a non-issue today, contaminants of other kinds are present in milk which cannot be ignored. Ironically, many of the tests carried out by the government cannot detect these contaminants. Living on the Edge questioned officials about the testing procedures they follow. The answers were not too encouraging.
What about contaminated water and preservatives to increase shelf life?
Contaminated water, of course, is a problem, and that is the test, we call it the microbiological test. The microbiological tests are not being carried out now. They don't make a part of food standards as regards milk and milk products when they are sold in loose condition.
Strangely enough, those who had apparently been guilty of contaminating milk suddenly developed a newfound zeal to prevent adulteration by acquiring milk test kits in large quantities. But how effective is the test itself?
They do fat, but they can't make out which fat it is, whether it's butter fat or vegetable oil fat. Fat is fat to the machine.
Recently, India was declared the largest producer of milk in the world. But that makes little sense if the quality of the milk leaves a lot to be desired. The synthetic milk scare may have been an exaggerated response to a temporary phenomenon, but it certainly drew attention to the need for more stringent quality control. If you do not want to be a passive consumer and need answers to any niggling questions about your source of milk, here are a few people that you can contact. Local food inspector of your district, Food Health Authority of your state, Directorate General of Health Services, Prevention of Food Adulteration Wing, Nirman Bhavan, New Delhi 11, Quality Control Manager, Mother Dairy, Patpatganj, Delhi 92.
Why do camels have humps? To store water, of course. Well, not entirely correct. They store fat in their humps to be used in case of emergencies when energy is needed, when it can't eat or drink. Most warm-blooded creatures need to keep a stable body temperature. They do so by sweating when it is hot or just by keeping out of the sun. But our friend, the ship of the desert, cannot hide. Its body temperature rises from 35 degrees centigrade to 50 degrees centigrade, and then only do they sweat, losing up to 40% of its total weight before its life is in danger.
One fine morning, a group of tribals in Orissa decided to change the environment around them. Their efforts met with resounding success. They say that nothing succeeds like success. If that's the case, let's all learn from Nandini Rajwade's account of the tribals in Mayurbhanj.
This is not an early morning walk through a forest, nor are these people out for a stroll. It is a Saturday and they are on their way to attend a weekly meeting. Gorachan Mahanta, 60, chairs it, and you can attend it too if you have the will and determination of these people. In the tribal-dominated Mayurbhanj district of Orissa, locals are banding together to protect and conserve their forest lands. And this is because their only source of livelihood is being threatened. Mayurbhanj has always had good forest cover, consisting of mainly sal trees. But the drive through this 30,000 hectares of reserved forest land wasn't always so picturesque. Sal regenerates fast, has good timber value, and attracts greedy contractors. As a result, till the 80s, most forest areas in this region were barren and degraded. Local communities, traditionally dependent on the forests, were desperate.
जंगलटा आगे बहुत 20 वर्ष आगु जंगलटा बहुत बड़ जंगल थिला एटी बाघ भालू हाथी भी सब थिले आमर खरा दृष्टि देला पवन बहुत हला धान गछ बाधा पाइगला आ चुंग पुखरी नाड़ एरा सब सुखीगला यही दृष्टि आमर जे उपरे बुढ़ा माने थिले आम ठाकुरदा माने से माने कहले देखो जंगल थिला आमर वर्षा पानी सब थिला आ खरा दृष्टि आम पाऊली नहीं जंगल रे आम बहुत खाद्य तुंगा पाखु छतु पाखु आम बहुत खाद्य पाऊली सेरा सब हजिगलानी तुम जंगल सुरक्षा करने.
And that's how forest protection was reborn. Today there are 90 villages on 30,000 hectares of Buri Khamari, all of which follow the same conservation pattern. It is called Muthi Pali or Thenga Pali. Every household contributes a fixed quantity of rice or money to a joint committee. 12 people are appointed to do day and night guard duty. The guards are paid in rice or money depending on what's collected. Their job is to ensure that no one touches the trees in the forest. Only dry wood and twigs can be collected for firewood.
सेमान को जे दिए मना करिवे और जे न मानले एटकू धरि आनिवे
के दू था
ऑफिस को
धरि आनले की हुए
एटे विचार होबो जा सभापति जा फैसला करबो से बुझिबो.
But offenders are not always understanding and cooperative.
आम जंगल ड्यूटी जाइथिलु आ गोटे टरक को आम धरिथिलु आ टरक वाला आ तांको दल बड़ आनी कर हमको बहुत किछि मारपीट देइथिले पुलिस केस हेइथिले.
But this is an exception. Usually the guards are more than equipped to deal with transgressors. As a result, the villagers are thriving. Cups and plates made of sal leaves and rope made of locally grown sabai grass provide additional income, and the productivity of cultivable land has improved. The question is, do these villagers have anything to fear?
After say 10 years, when the sal forest that they have been protecting till now, its timber value grows. then the question will come, who will take the share of that timber? Then only the problem will come.
Technically, the forests are owned by the government and legally they have a right to its produce. But is this right to be extracted at the cost of community well-being?
Annie Korean of Bangalore is a 17-year-old viewer of Living on the Edge. She says she would like to help sick animals. Annie, we promised to run a list of animal welfare organizations at the end of this program. With environmental consciousness growing, the list of things being recycled is also growing. Paper, plastic, glass and water, the list is endless. But have you ever heard of recycled? Wait and see.
It's strong and durable, so much so that Christopher Columbus once used it to make sails, and the name we all know it by is of French origin.
Mr. Lover, lover, now Mr. Lover, lover, girl, Mr. Lover, lover, now Mr. Lover, lover.
From its origin as pure workwear, denim has spread through the entire range of the fashion spectrum. What's more, it's even managed to cut across race, color, sex, and even class. And now, the familiar look of blue denim is taking on a new avatar. Harpreet Singh, a photographer, teamed up with a leading jean company, and they
make handmade paper from denim waste.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Paper from denim. Harpreet came up with this idea while looking for an alternate source of income, and then he struck upon scrap denim, tons of which were just thrown away for the lack of anything else to do.
You just saw the waste earlier. It's all just waste, technically. It is converted into something valuable which can be reused.
But isn't it a complicated process?
Handmade paper industry uses cotton rags in our country. Denim is 100% cotton. So the process, what I'm doing is nothing new. I'm using an existing process.
If you have a setup that can make handmade paper, all you need is a denim factory to give you its waste. The process is so simple, you can even do it at home. This distinctive wood-free blue paper can be turned into a wide range of products. Denim paper, it's good for the environment, good for the consumer, and
thirdly, it's generating value-added employment, including myself.
imagine that!